Now, up next, we've got Carl Byers of NGRAIN. Carl's also president of the area organization.
Pete. So as Pete introduced me, my name is Carl Byers. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for NGRAIN Corporation. We're a 3D visualization technology company that focuses on augmented reality and virtual reality applications for enterprise and industrial environments. We are a founding co-sponsor of founding members, of the area, and excited to be up here being kind of express and describe some of the our expertise, our experiences, as well as recommendations in terms of bringing AR into the enterprise and complex industrial environments. I'm going to talk a little bit about, obviously, preparing enterprise data. So we've talked a lot about use cases, we've talked about some of the challenges and things like that. Most of my talk is going to be around what do you do with the data, how do you get the data, what type of data do you actually need, and how do you consider that in the context of the environment. This is the example of what we're talking about here. So you've seen this variance in the slides from most of the presenters so far today. So the enterprise industrial data environment is inherently complex. Down on the bottom here, we've got an alphabet soup of enterprise systems. Everything from ERP systems to manufacturing execution systems to PLM, CAD, maintenance and repair and overhaul systems. If you look at those things, those data stores that are taking in information dynamically, but also deep history of data, those data stores tend to be very, very siloed, very focused around specific disciplines, specific organizations, owned and protected. How do you get access to that stuff? How do you connect it to other things across the silos? So it's not just about, can I get access to my data? Can I actually speak to somebody else in the company so that I can get it and connect it to something else? Up at the top, we've got the real-time data coming in, terabytes of information coming in from the industrial internet and what was historically SCADA systems. Again, live data coming in real time, sitting somewhere, doing something that people really don't know what they're going to do with it. Connecting those two pieces together is a whole bunch of analytics. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, but a lot of analytics. And controlled by, I'm going to go over to here. Okay, and those analytics, again, controlled by another group of people in the organization, the data scientists, the people that are protecting the welfare and the data of the organization, and being able to recommend to practitioners either in the organization at head office or folks out in the field how they should be changing their enterprises. But again, each of these pieces are siloed. Each of them is protected, and if you look at most organizations, much of it is underutilized as well. There's this vast amount of data that's being collected and stored and really not used to its full potential. How do you get that stuff? How do you package it? What do you package and what do you bring out to the field or to the factory floor or to the maintenance and support organization to be able to do their jobs better? In most of the presentations that came in the very first section, for those that you were here, there was a lot of discussion about the use cases. So I'm not going to spend much time talking about use cases, other than to say it's really important to choose a good one. As most of the guys mentioned, the nature of the use cases needs to be bounded, needs to be kind of framed in a way that can really orient towards success and towards ROI, but also understanding the constraints of AR. Right? So considering that then feeds into what data you actually choose to use, and how you use that data in an effective way. Okay? So just some of the things that are really important here from a consideration of, again, consider that alphabet soup of data combined with live stuff going in the field. What do you want to use and what do you want to pull together? So some primary considerations here, again, in the context of a use case, is what are the security and roles? And I'm not just talking about security from the point of view of device security or network security or information access security. I'm talking about it from the point of view of individual roles and performance. I don't trust that, I'm staying here. So in the view of individual roles and performance, so me as an individual, you as an individual, what are your security access constraints, whether that is competency-based access to information, whether that is role or hierarchy-based access to information, that's stuff that needs to be considered when I start to think about AR. What am I going to deliver to whom, and how do I control that, right? It's a different security problem than just device security and network security. Because ultimately with AR, what you want to do is you want to enable somebody to do their job better, to make a decision better. So you don't want to overload them with information. You want to just package the information that's relevant to what they want to do tomorrow, what the next activity is that they need to want to do, may need to know about. That feeds into location and accessibility. So this becomes an issue of, so is the data in a data store or live, and coming to me as an end user for AR, how am I going to get access to that? Is my location and operating environment conducive to streaming information? That leads me down one type of data distribution path. Do I alternatively have to synchronize information and do a manual sync and carry everything with me? And then what do I carry with me? Those are two very different strategies to information distribution, right? That's relevant to me as a user in my specific role, and may impact the way that I accept AR, because do I want to carry a big device with lots of data, or do I want to be able to stream stuff on a low-end device? Okay. Level of aggregation is something that's particularly important when it leads down to, again, the amount of information you're going to distribute. So what I mean by level of aggregation is, if I'm dealing with a piece of equipment in a plant, what do I care about most? Do I care about the bolt, the subassembly, the assembly, the whole system, or do I actually care about the context within the plant as a supervisor? Each of those is different sets of information, different types of data distributed to me, and both has a direct impact. Each has a direct impact on how much, what the volume of information is that is on my device available to me, either streamed or synced or whatever, okay? So again, considering the level of aggregation, because again, it's not one size fits all. In some contexts, all I care about is the bolt. In some jobs, all I care about is the overall supervisory view of the factory floor, which is the role in the support of the use case that I'm trying to focus in on. Each of those top three really drives the issue of portability and performance. So I'm looking at data, looking at CAD data, I'm looking at enterprise data, I'm looking at live data coming in from the field. It all consumes space. So what am I going to operate on? Am I operating on wearables with limited RAM and limited internal memory? Am I operating on a tablet-based device? Do I have something tethered to me that I can carry with me? Am I streaming or whatever? So those decisions around portability and performance become particularly important in the context of the top three items in terms of what data I actually want to present. And there's a lot of compression that has to be done, a lot of triaging that has to be done, so I'm delivering just the right information to the person in the field. I don't want to lose sight on consistency and relevance, because again, consistency is what this is really all about. I need to get the information that is appropriate for what I'm doing, and I need to be able to trust it, right? So is the database itself, the information I'm pulling from, is it truly consistent? If I have 2 or 3 different data types, is it an integrated, correlated data set, or is it in fact stuff that is irrelevant to what I'm doing for time something has superseded its value, right? So understanding that and making sure that's part of your data management process becomes really important. Now let's consider the real world. So that's just talking about data. What do I need? What do I have to distribute in the context of a particular use case? This is the world that NGRAIN operates in, the next couple slides here. Very complex industrial environments, whether it be plant-based environments with really bizarre lighting conditions, whether that be field-based activities where you've got a guy with really clean overalls but really dirty workspace. How do you actually deliver information in these environments? They're inconsistent, the lighting is inconsistent, this is dirty and it really looks nice and clear into the blue sky in spring, but what does it look like in winter with the 10 feet of snow? Those are all different considerations. Can I even do this? So it goes to use case, but also what do I deliver to the user? Or if I'm looking at a factory floor with intense security requirements, both for data delivery as well as the information exchange between users. Am I a supervisor in this environment looking at general flow, or am I an individual worker that's actually trying to put the next span on the aircraft? So considering the real world, and again, and for those of you that have actually built and delivered and tested AR solutions, you know there's some big issues, right? Lighting is an issue. Equipment consistency is an issue. Dust, dirt, grease, fog, wind, not so much wind, rain. All of that affects your ability to track, to be able to know what you're dealing with, and to be able to deliver information in an effective way to an end user. The data becomes part of that in the sense of, do I need to deliver data that actually is manageable, viewable, and interactable in that kind of environment. The other piece is geolocation positioning. So do I actually have access to the person when he is in the jungles of Borneo, delivering information to that person? Maybe yes, maybe no. Again, we don't want to look at AR as just a tech stack here. It's truly an information delivery environment, bi-directional information delivery and capture environment that makes somebody's job better. Don't lose sight of that. The last one there is existing end user processes. So there's a lot of assumptions. You deal with Fortune 2000 companies. They've got processes. They're all great. What we often see is they have processes and they have many that are conflicting. So the outcome is if you're building and working with data in the context of process in a field-oriented environment, make sure your process is truly validated. What we find is that you end up coming up against 2 or 3 experts, all of which use 2 or 3 different processes, each of them thinking that those are the right processes, right? How do you validate and correlate that and make sure that you've refined it to something that is one that will be acceptable to the group of end users that are going to be deploying the equipment? So just a few comments here just to get close to wrap up an effective AR data presentation. So the first is really tap the subject matter expert. A lot of those things in terms of what data, how, process, what the field environment in, the subject matter expert knows that stuff. That together with the champion inside the organization can put the 2 pieces together and say, this is the type of information that makes sense for this type of user, as opposed to a technology vendor or supplier going in and saying, this is cool stuff, you should use some. Okay? The subject matter expert is not only key to delivering the right kind of context to what you're doing, but also extremely key in terms of the buy-in and the deployability of the system across the enterprise once you're starting to move into the cases, the test cases. Reuse and automation is another critical one. So a lot of data, as we've all said, and a number of people already said, a lot of data already exists in the enterprise. CAD data, asset data, manufacturing execution data, training data, all sorts of things like that. Reuse it. There's lots of tools that allow you to be able to reuse, repackage, and redeploy those things instead of redeveloping it. That really allows organizations to see and feel the impact of their ROI. They've already invested in those production assets. Why not use them and show people how they can reuse them? And the last one I'll use there is really establish and reinforce a process. So the process is not only from the point of view of the use of AR in the field, but it's also in the context of the production of AR assets. Again, so this is a consistent element. So when you're looking at your data, you're looking at the use case driven decisions, and use case and environment driven decisions of what data to use, how to correlate it, combine it, and deliver it in an effective way to an end user. Structure it as a process, especially if you're dealing with the large organizations that want to be able to deploy continuously and in a consistent manner beyond a first initial deployment trial. NGRAIN is in the exhibit hall. That's probably the best way to snag us since we're running a little bit short on time here. We want to make sure that you're out for lunch. And so come visit us in the exhibit hall. We've got some great demos for industrial AR applications there. Come speak to us about as well as the other speakers that are here when you track them down about the area. It's a great group of collegial organizations working together to build an ecosystem that really drives best practices of AR across industrial enterprise applications. And each of us is more than happy to talk about that exciting opportunity. All right, thank you very much.